Joy in the City is a program highlighting people and organizations having an impact in our city. All too often, we hear about the problems and the dysfunction in our culture, but we are coming with a different approach as we take a look at the good things going on right here in our community, and you're about to see what God is doing in our city. We want to thank our program sponsors, Park Home for the donation of furniture used in our studio, Taylor Design and Events for beautifully decorating our studio space, and our platinum sponsor, Harry's Construction, for their ongoing support of Joy in the City. We've all heard stories of how God takes our skills and talents we've developed and uses them for His kingdom. Our first story is a demonstration of just that, as Troy Ferguson sits down with Eric and Cindy Noel of Sowing Seeds in Belize.
So thank you for stopping by today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ministry that God has put on your heart and what all you're doing. So first of all, before we get to that, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Eric. This is my wife Cindy. We have spent the past 20 years running a farm-to-table business. I was the farm and she was the table.
So what does that mean? Talk about what is farm-to-table business.
Farm-to-table is, I was a produce farmer. I grew produce, I raised chickens, raised some livestock, and we would take that to farmers markets and sell it.
Okay.
And then Cindy would take the products that I raised and grew, and she would do value-added work with it. She would make meat pies and desserts and food for people to buy and take home.
Okay, very cool. So now let's talk about the ministry that you guys are doing. How did that come about? Where's the call to do what you guys do with that?
I would say about 5 years ago, we were on a cruise, and one of our stops for a day was in Belize. And we had decided to take an excursion to the Mayan ruins. And on the way there, it was a very long trip, and we went through a lot of remote villages. And something just sparked in my heart. I felt the Lord say, "I want you here." And so the Lord was calling Eric in a very different way, and I didn't know that until we just started to pray about this and talk more about it. We had no connections in the country, but we knew that if God wanted us there, that He would provide for those connections, which He did. And it was nearly a year later when we found out that really good friends of ours have good friends that have been doing ministry in Belize for nearly 20 years. So we connected with them and told them that really we didn't know all that God was calling us to, that He simply said to go. And we were making the connection first with them, and they said, well, let's do a vision tour for about 10 days. So it was a year after that cruise that we went on a vision tour for 10 days. And from there, we just began to ask the Lord to show us what it was that He wanted us to do. We felt certain that it was going to be something around food and agriculture. And when we went on that vision tour, that proved to be true, because everywhere we went, the prison, safe houses for women and girls, or an orphanage, they all wanted training and help to make their facilities more sustainable with food, and also to teach a skill to either the children or the women, the prisoners. And so that began then to unfold part of the vision that God had for us, that it really was around agriculture and food. And then as we began to develop it more over the past years, we realized that simply what God was asking us to do is to take what we learned and had been doing here for 20 years and transfer it to the people in the country of Belize. And so that's what we've been doing ever since.
So the name Sowing Seeds, talk about where that came from.
Sowing Seeds in Belize came from several different ideas and visions. We knew that we were going to be teaching people to grow food. To grow food, obviously, the first step is to sow seeds. When we were growing food for a living, 1 Corinthians 3:7 was kind of the focus for me with what we did in the field. It's not the one who plants or the one who waters, but God who makes things grow. And we knew that for the ministry to grow and for the ministry to flourish, that had to be kind of our focus. So it's Sowing Seeds in Belize with the focus on 1 Corinthians 3:7. Not only are we helping people to plant and to grow and to feed themselves, but we also have a part of what we do that helps churches to grow and helps communities to grow and helps families to grow.
And how? Like you say that part of it does that in what way?
We have a container ministry where every year we ship at least one container to Belize. The container's loaded with textbooks and desks and mattresses and clothes and shoes. And everything that we send down, we funnel through the local churches. And the local churches then work with the communities and with the village leaders to make the distributions happen. And so through that work, we're able to connect with many different villages and many different families and churches.
We're working with some young women. Some want to start small baking businesses. And there's one young gal who, after about 8th grade, she could no longer go to high school because her family could not afford it. And her dream was to be able to start a little sewing business. So for these women and for this gal, we were able to supply a sewing machine and thread, some fabric for her, so that she could start making, she started with small girl dresses, and she's been selling those in her village. And she has quite a talent, actually, for sewing. And now her dream is to have a little shop right at her house where she can sew other things. She's also able to sew school uniforms, which are required for every student in the country. So almost immediately, once she received a sewing machine from us, she was able to begin a business. And the same is very true for the women that we've helped start the small baking businesses. Once we were able to supply them with some very basic supplies and equipment, ingredients, as well as recipes. They were very anxious and eager to learn how to make new things, very simple things that they felt would sell in their village. They began then to make and take it out into the village to sell, to make some money for their family.
Wow. So sewing in multiple facets of sewing, in a sense. What are some of the things that you hope to see through this ministry in the next year, 2 years, 5 years?
One of the processes that we were able to start just before COVID hit was one of the community gardens with one of the churches we're working with, actually the primary church that we work with. We were able to supply them with fence, with posts, with seeds, with a rototiller, and with education on how to start the garden. Once that process was finished, we had multiple calls from the embassy and from our board of directors saying, COVID's going to hit, you need to come home. So we left 6 weeks early. But through that little bit of work we were able to do, the church now has a community garden that serves over 20 families.
Wow.
Not only does it serve the 20 families, but they're able to take the produce into towns and villages and share with those who don't have, because there is shortages right now in Belize. One of the really awesome things that's happening with this is that Pastor Hernandez in Belize is getting text messages and phone calls from people asking for 1 okra or 1 tomato or 1 cucumber. Not because they want to eat it, but because they want to save the seeds from it. And they want to take that garden process into their own backyard. And that's really what we want to be. One of the things we want to be able to do is teach these people how to feed themselves again.
Currently, right now, we're dealing with COVID-19 and coronavirus around the world. How is that impacting what you're trying to do overseas?
It's got a huge impact. When we left Belize, there was no COVID in the country. Over these past 5 months that we've been home, they're up to 650 cases. Doesn't sound like a lot, but Belize is a small country. It's about the size of Massachusetts, population 350,000 people. And with public transportation being the only way to get around, buses are obviously a petri dish of disease.
Is your desire to be doing that full time at some point? Is that the plan?
We do that full time.
Okay. So you're just not there all year round per se.
Right.
But
So when we're here, which is really the spring and summer, early fall months here, we are working on fundraising. and we're working from afar. That could be a plethora of things, because we're always in contact with the pastor at the church. And so while there's a distance between us, we're still communicating. We're still sending money for specific projects. We're still helping in other ways through usually Facebook Messenger is how we do most of our communication. But we need those months here in the States really to raise the funds to do what we do. So right now it works out really, really well. And I would say that we're in that place where, when we began this, it was a response of obedience to what God was calling us to do. And so we're in this for whatever God would tell us what to do. And our view and our face on this is we certainly want to be obedient. And, there's some days where you can tend to maybe start to feel a little tentative because life has been really upended. However, we know who's in control. And there's something pretty special about that, because every day we have to be dependent on what God places in front of us. And we're very clear about from where our provision comes from. And we're very grateful for that. Totally feel blessed through this process. And when we see how folks live in Belize, how simple, how primitive, and with very little resources, we are truly blessed. And so we simply want to be available to God. And if he says go more, then we know he'll provide what we need, and we'll go more.
Well, let me just say thank you for coming by, talking for a few minutes about this. And we'll pray that God continues to bless this, even in this transition time, that we see the next year, couple years just be plentiful and fruitful. And I know us as a church have connected with you guys through Pastor, and looking forward to all the things that can be done through you guys over in Belize.
If you know of a person or organization impacting our city, we want to hear about it. Be sure to contact us at 814-944-1948 or by email at stories@joyinthecity.org.
Today's Platinum sponsor is Harry's Construction, whose motto is, if you can dream it, we can create it. Recently opening Harry's Construction Kitchen and Bath Center so you, the consumer, can see examples of the variety of services provided by the team at Harry's Construction. Regardless of the project size, Harry's team approaches each project as if it is his own home. Be sure to visit Harry's Construction Kitchen and Bath Center at 114 Main Street in Bellwood. You can also visit their website to see pictures of home improvement projects over the years. Thanks again to Harry Halk and the team for supporting Joy in the City.
Joy in the City has always been about highlighting a person or an organization impacting our community. But now we are expanding this program to include a monthly theme segment. This month, we asked several organizations how this pandemic has affected their entity. We start with a conversation with State Senator Judy Ward.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for coming in today. And this is a privilege to be able to sit down and talk with you for a few minutes. And if you would, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be here and share a little bit about my life with you and your listeners. Grew up here in Blair County, and I'm mother of 2 grown sons. I have a wonderful husband, Bill, who's incredibly patient and allows me to go out and do my thing and do what I feel called to do, and that's serve the people of my now 30th Senate District.
So what got you interested in politics when you started? What was your plan there?
Sure. So I always helped locally. I wanted to see good people get into politics and get elected. So I was a behind the scenes person, helping with some campaigns. and doing what I could to help locally, the party locally. And kind of interesting, I was a state committee member for the Republican Party. I was a state committee member for many years and had a lot of connections. I did a Republican women's leadership class, which I felt was very helpful to me, and some other kinds of leadership classes. But I just did leadership classes and kind of just, I was around politics a lot. And my predecessor in the House, Representative Jerry Stern, called one day, the day after an election, and he said, I just want to tell you I'm going to announce that I won't be running for another term. And I got off the phone with him, and I was driving, I was somewhere for work, and had a lot of windshield time, and I thought, who would be a good person that I could get behind? I wanted someone that I felt, would represent my values and be good. And I remembered my son, my oldest son, many years ago said, Mom, you'd be a great state rep. And I kind of poo-pooed him, but I thought, gosh, when I think about different people, I had a lot of public service, volunteerism. I had done different jobs and things I felt qualified, made me a better candidate. And I thought about it and I thought, my goodness, I do have a good resume. So I spoke with my family and they were very solidly behind me. So I jumped in and ran for the state house, and then 4 years later ran for the state senate, which is where I am now.
So we're in a time like none other currently with COVID-19 coronavirus. How are you responding to this situation, and how has it played out day to day?
It's been difficult. I mean, for constituents, we have people who have, they're still working on an unemployment compensation claim from maybe March or April. We've worked very hard to try to advocate for people. We've done a lot of that during the waiver process. Businesses who felt they should be open, they should get a waiver to be open. We worked very hard to advocate for our constituents. And we were successful in many cases. Some cases we were not. But it sort of magnified issues, restaurants are struggling right now. Trying to help them and get them as much leeway as possible, which right now isn't very much. But just working and trying to help our constituents every single day. I have a tremendous staff, both in the district and in Harrisburg. So they've been working very hard. During the first part of COVID, we closed our offices to the public, but we answered emails, we answered the phones, we worked, and the staff would come in the morning and say, you look like you should be going home for the day. It was exhausting because people were hurting, they were struggling, and we have 4 phone lines, and they were all ringing. My personal cell phone was ringing. So we were all working together, which was great, but it's been difficult for people.
Let me ask you, from a person in a governmental role, what is something that the faith community can be doing to help and not hurt what you're trying to accomplish in this journey?
Yeah. I would say one of the biggest things that your faith community and all faith communities can do is just to pray. And I get a lot of power and I feel a lot of strength in prayer. I personally am a very prayerful person. I have a very deep faith. And others will say, what can I do for you? And I say, pray. I mean, we have divided government right now, and we don't always see eye to eye. And that has been a struggle. That's been very draining. And I think for people need to pray for their legislators, for wisdom and discernment, for their elected officials all over. Because there's a lot of tough decisions. We have a budget that we've not completely funded. There's going to be some very difficult choices come November when we get this budget. And we're going to begin that process here in the next month or so. So people are not going to be happy because we do have to make difficult choices. But I will personally be praying, and I would ask your listeners to continue to pray that we make the right decisions. And there's elections coming up in November, and again, we need prayer, and we need good choices. We need good choices, because I do think, and we need people to get out and vote, and that is incredibly important. People say one vote does not matter, but it does. There's elections that are lost by just a few votes. So if your listeners can get out there to vote and be prayerful.
Definitely. Well, let me just say thank you for coming here today. Also, we did a Join the City prayer event with the community and many pastors, and I appreciate you being a part of that as well, as one of the government officials that prayed and been part of that day. That was all on video because it was everything at that time. And I just want to say thank you for that, first of all, and thank you for coming here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime I can pray with people, it's a good day. So
Indeed. God bless. Thank you.
thank you.
On our final segment today, we take a look at a faith leader in our city. This is an extended biography of local pastors and leaders as we hear about their background, call, purpose, and celebrate what God is doing in their congregations. Today, we have a chat with 2nd Ave United Methodist pastor, Brian Sandell.
Troy, that's a good question. One thing about myself, others do not know, I am a twin. I have a twin brother. We're fraternal. He's a great guy. He teaches down in Frederick, Maryland. I have been to the furthest, most western point in the continental 48 United States, Cape Flattery. We got together last summer, and one of my lifelong goals is to visit every single Major League Baseball park sometime during my lifetime. So I think I got 7 down. I got a ways to go, so we're hoping no more pandemics. But those are just a few things about me that some people may not know. I received a call when I was in high school. I was a pastor's kid at a mid-sized Presbyterian church in Williamsport, Maryland. My dad still serves there. All these years later, has had a great, wonderful, fruitful ministry. And during that time was blessed to have opportunities to have some church leadership. I got to preach, got to sit on some administrative board committees to learn how the discussions and the vision and leadership of the church run, and began hearing conversations and having moments where folks would stop me and say, Brian, you should really consider ministry as a career. I see God's gifting in your life, and this is something I think that God could really do some good things in you. And so I fought with it for a while, and then probably about my senior in high school said, hey, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to see what doors open up. And by the grace of God, it's been a kind of circuitous route to bring me to Altoona, but a couple doors closed and a door opened to come to Altoona, though, in June of 2016. And my family and I took it, and here we are. Troy, that's a great question. Some things about 2nd Avenue United Methodist, where I'm the lead pastor, we are a loving, compassionate, kind church. I hear a lot of folks when they come to visit us say, that was a friendly, really nice group of people. And that's something that I really beam in and take pride from. And I really am thankful that God has blessed us with that ministry. So it's a very open, friendly church. We have a multi-generational church. Our oldest member now, I think, is approaching 98, and we got a couple amazing soon-to-be mothers here getting ready to bless and bring some more children in this world. So we have a very wide range of ages, and we're a church that really seeks to love one another. It's a friendly church. We seek to give to the community on a regular basis. We have a monthly luncheon. We've served people at our church in this luncheon. And we've also recently, after COVID hit, have been giving away grab bags of lunches for anyone who's welcome. There's no requirement. You just show up and you'll be blessed. Some of the things we've focused on during my time there have been to build disciples and to reach into our community. And some of the things in building disciples, we've had some small groups begin and multiply and grow. We've had some wonderful opportunities of calling new people into leadership. We've really encouraged our church to articulate who they are, both as a whole body, but also an individual, and then begin to share that with everyone they come in contact with. That's been some of our discipleship growing moments, and some of what we're looking at into the future is how can we be much more intentional about involving a wider number of people. Reaching into the community, we've started a children's sports and theater camp. This past year is more sports related, called Rise Up. That's a week-long summer camp which looks to bless children in our community. We particularly gear it for folks who might not be able to attend camps offered by other organizations. We desire to make sure that kids have a chance to do camp during the summer. We have a monthly food pantry that serves on average between 50 to about 90 families a month. We've been much closer to the 90 mark here these past several months, and have just been very blessed to really take the commandment of Jesus seriously. If your brother or sister is hungry, if you feed him, it's like you've done it for Jesus. Our church has also had, for a long period of time, a wonderful clothing ministry that has blessed children with new back to school clothing. New to them, the clothing is lightly used, called the Hope Chest. When families have lost things in fires or floods or accidents, or people come and they move, we have been very generous as a church to provide clothing. Primarily it's children and women's clothing to bless those if they're in need and the need is available. And one final program we do a few more things, but one final consistent program we do, Troy, is our after-school kids program called The Rock. The Rock meets Wednesday nights throughout the school year. Children will come. They'll receive a delicious home-cooked meal. They'll have Bible time. They'll have gym time. They'll have a time of connecting with their teacher and their friends, and they'll definitely, in that time, learn about that Jesus really does love them. Even at times when the world is hard, they'll always be reminded every week that Jesus truly loves them. So Second Avenue is a special place. It's not a perfect place by a long shot, but it's a very special place, and it's a wonderful place. And I've been blessed to be there over 4 years now.
If you have a personal story or a testimony you'd be willing to share with our community, we'd love to chat with you about it. Please contact us at 814-944-1948 or email us at stories@joyinthecity.org. That's all the time we have today. Thank you for watching Joy in the City, True Stories. Let me encourage you to watch other episodes of people and organizations having an impact on our community on ABC 23 at 5:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. every Sunday. You can also catch us each week on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Until then, be encouraged because God is moving in our city.